set this up to get us started. Welcome everyone. I'm so excited you're here. So Bondit Jewelry from the Stay Gold Collective is an exhibition we put together for Jewelry Week because we're a community. And I think that really became evident when the pandemic started. We all became pretty close, and what I envisioned the Stay Gold Collective to be really, it started to get there. I started this community, I think 3 years ago at this point, and the goal was to provide affordable consulting to jewelry designers. And I envisioned this group of designers who really supported each other in a big way. I had the opportunity to curate the new designer gallery at JA New York. And what I saw come from the 10 designers that were selected for each show was this really supportive community and friendship that came from every single trade show. And even though these designers were in competition, technically they would all end up collaborating at the end or supporting each other in big ways. And a lot of times you think about the jewelry industry as really hard to enter, or there's not a lot of support there. And that is true to a point, but from what I've seen and from my experience, I've seen designers do nothing but really help each other succeed. And I see that from this group every single week, and I think it's amazing. So I also want to mention that one of my big role models in the jewelry industry, my first job in the industry was working for Todd Reed out of Boulder, Colorado. Everybody knows him, I'm sure, who's watching this. But he was such an advocate for emerging designers. He put a lot of his own time into supporting emerging designers. He knew he had his own voice and felt very confident in helping others. So I really learned a lot from him in terms of really supporting each other, and then creating a community around a brand, and kind of inviting people into your world to connect. And I saw his clients become friends based on like a love for his jewelry. And I think that's really incredible. And I also think that community is something that is so important for brands these days. When you're looking at what to do with your business right now, and we're all maybe a little bit stumped because we're kind of part virtual, part in person, trying to figure out how to move forward. The social media is not working the same way it used to. But I think there's a lot of power in really creating a community around your brand and inviting your clients and people who love your work into your world. So I just want to put that thought out there too. But let's get into this, and let's talk to this amazing group of people who has agreed to be on this panel with me. There's a lot more members of the Stay Gold Collective watching and in the exhibition, but some of them have offered to chat and share their experience, and I'm very appreciative about that. So I'm going to ask the group some questions and we'll chat. And again, feel free to ask a question, feel free to comment in the chat. I would love to hear from everyone watching. But first off, let's start with a really broad question. What does community mean to you? Does anybody want to kick it off?
Good Lord. All right. Is that all right if I start, ladies?
Please, go ahead.
I just want to speak to, Liz, your point of kind of the process of being an outsider and coming into the jewelry industry. Hi, my name is Creek, and I started at craft shows, and that is okay. That is wonderful. And it is through this group that I went from really feeling alone in my studio as a maker to kind of being pulled in. I thought the jewelry industry was a scary, unfriendly place because I was busy at craft fairs. And to find this group and not only be enfolded and encircled, but so specifically helped out with everything from detailed pricing questions. You know, for me, I've gone into 14 karat gold and began using stones and just completely elevated my brand while staying true to my voice. And it wasn't scary because of you guys. And that has just been so powerful to feel true friendships. Some of these people, like, you won't be able to get rid of me. And that you've shown us how I thought Instagram also was very shallow, or just, you know, not. I learned through this group how to really show up as myself and connect in powerful ways that are total joy bringers. So I'm so grateful to have been kind of just gently enfolded into this industry through community, and that you have created, and thanks Todd and many others, it's a mindset of plenty. There's room for all of us. up all, and it's beautiful. So that I feel so grateful to feel like I'm part of this beautiful handcrafted industry, and not just a lady in a tent anymore.
That's great. I do also have to mention, you just reminded me that of course I need to mention Cindy Edelston, who said just that, and she passed away several years ago, but she was a big advocate in this industry for emerging designers, and she said just that there's room for everyone here, and I really do believe that. Anybody want to comment on what community means to them? Aylee?
Sure, I'll go ahead. I'm Aylee Cody. Whoops. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is pre-pandemic, I've been doing this a really long time. I think I'm on year 14 of owning my little store. And pre-pandemic, I had this idea that it was more competitive than it is, that I didn't know that jewelers all over the world could be such close friends. And I don't know where I got that notion, because it's absolutely not true. And I think one of the things was we didn't have a way to necessarily meet each other unless we were at the same events. And sometimes events create a different high intensity atmosphere that limits the getting to know you and being incredibly transparent and real, because everyone's in this heightened hustle, on your toes environment. So, you know, we wouldn't necessarily just fly across the country or the world to say, hey, want to meet me and get coffee or something. And so all of this online community with Stay Gold Collective, we were given an opportunity to have a coffee date, to chat about our daily lives, to build friendships in a way that was not available to us before. So like this whole new sense of community that's a long distance community. It's not just your local community. This community is worldwide. And I never really thought of community like that before. I thought of community as like local and like more condensed. And this community is huge. And how lovely and amazing that's just one of the ways I think that the pandemic brought something amazing out of the darkness, is this tight-knit opportunity to be close even though we're far away.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I need to shout out Alison because she's in Scotland right now. So, and it's late there. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. I've been thinking about like how in the UK, actually thinking about what you have in the US, in the UK, we're so much smaller, and we all the jewelers, like from doing the physical shows, you kind of, you know everybody, and if you don't know them, you know them like through somebody else, you know they're friends with somebody else. So we have this amazing community over here, and now through joining the collective, I've sort of delving into this amazing community in the US as well. But super supportive over here as well, sharing information, sharing all your mistakes that you've made, because we're all just holed up in our little spaces, and it's just so valuable to have that support. I was just sat at my bench today chatting with a jeweler friend on FaceTiming as we were both working. We were talking about clothes, we weren't talking about jewelry, but yeah.
That's still so nice to have that when, because being a jeweler is such kind of a solo thing. You're very focused and at your bench, right? So to have an opportunity to talk to other people probably feels really good.
Yeah, just perfect.
Anybody else want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I'll say something. I love what everyone else has said, and thinking about community, I almost think it's like asking a fish about water, you know, like how do you define that? Because community is everything to me. And I love what everyone else here has said. I want to add that when I think about the finished piece of jewelry, like you might see the end piece, you might see the jeweler who made it, but every piece of jewelry represents this enormous community of people, the people at the source who are getting those materials out, the people who bring the materials to the jewelers, any number of middlemen, but then also the families of all of those people. I mean, it's millions of people worldwide involved with every piece of jewelry, the refiners, etc. And not only has this pandemic been an opportunity to connect with this wonderful group of people doing the same work, where we can all share in like intellectual and emotional resources with one another in our trade and craft, but this pandemic has been this amazing opportunity of connecting with the wider jewelry community. I've been able to be part of, and I know a lot of the other people in this virtual room have also, part of webinars and conferences and discussions with people who are involved with the, you know, all the different aspects along the way in the industry. And it's been such a wonderful point of connection and put so much more meaning into the work that we do.
That's great. That's really wonderful. Anyone else have any thoughts? Susan's asking how to join the conversation. Let me pull you up, Susan. Anybody else want to comment on this question? What does community mean to you?
I could say something about being from a really, really small town, very far from any sort of center of craft or culture or anything like that, where you have access to information. I think one of the greatest things about joining the Stegall community was that whenever I had a question, it could be really specific or it could be really broad, I immediately had a group of people to ask. Whereas living in a small town in North Carolina, unless I wanted to spend a lot of time searching on the internet and searching through like really old jewelry boards to find answers to questions, I now had some people to bounce ideas off of and ask tool questions to, ask social media questions to, because in addition to having Liz as a marketing guru, you get access to people who are all facing the same more or less issues that you are. And then it also becomes like a therapy group. I know a couple of us have connected on the therapy side of making jewelry and what it does to your brain and your emotions, and not so much just what it does in the sense of like the technical making jewelry part of it. So it's multifaceted.
That's amazing. I love that. It does. Some of our live chats as a group do sometimes start to feel like therapy sessions, which we all need sometimes. That's great. Susan, did you have something you wanted to say?
Sorry, I just had a phone call, so I had to turn it off. Lauren, I haven't met you yet. I'm Susan, but I also live in a really small town. And I'm probably about 50 miles from Minneapolis. So, you know, I go in almost every week, but it still can feel real isolating working for yourself. And so that I really appreciate this group because, oh my gosh, we talk about all sorts of things. So it's been you truly have built a community, Liz.
Thanks.
Of like-minded people. I think that's the other thing. I think so many of us are a lot alike. And maybe that's why we ended up doing what we're doing. But anyway, I enjoy it.
Susan actually did a trade show with me. I forget what year it was, but what I've said then and what I say now about the designers I work with is that I attract, for whatever reason, the best people, like just the truest artists, the most thoughtful artists. Like everybody has its own unique perspective. And the feedback I've gotten from this exhibition so far has been, wow, there's so many distinctive styles. Like there's so many distinctive styles. And if you look at everybody in the Stagel Collective, everybody has such a unique perspective, even though we're all working with similar materials. So there is really no competition, and you know, it's really an incredible thing. Anybody else thoughts on what community means to them? Okay, I'm going to ask my next question. How has community helped you in your career? Which some of you have already spoke to this, but if anybody wants to comment specifically on that. Beth?
Wait, okay, I'm unmuted now. Hi, I joined this like right when the pandemic started, and I had made a decision after my mom passed away to really get back to my jewelry business. Not that it ever went away, but it just kind of took a little backseat with what I was doing, caring for my mom. And so this group, this community has been like a freaking lifeboat for me. I've been making jewelry for a long time, and I always felt like I was kind of I was just on my own little boat. And even when I lived in New York City, but now that I live in this, I'm like some other people in this group in a freaking small town, where I feel very isolated. And then we were isolated with the pandemic. Like this, this group has just been, I don't even know if I'm answering the question, but.
I did not intend this discussion to be like, oh my gosh, this is great, Liz, you're great.
It is. Because it used to be so competitive with jewelers. Like, oh, I'm keeping this information to myself. There was never any of this back and forth. Like, oh, you're looking for this type of stone. Let me tell you who I use for a stone dealer, or where I get my castings done. It was so hush hush. It was so like protected. And I love that it's just, that's gone away, and there's support, and there's communication, and there's a give and take. It's great. So
that's awesome. Thank you. Laura, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what everybody's been saying. I completely agree with everything, especially during the pandemic. So I do live in a big city, in New York City. But even in a big city, it can be isolating working alone in your own space with jewelry. And especially during the pandemic, everybody was elsewhere or inside. So this community really enabled me to continue like kind of like networking and relating to other people. And the information that has been passed along to me through so many of the meetings has given me a confidence that I really needed. And now when I interact with customers, it's so apparent that I feel like I've really changed very much, and all for the better. In knowing that I'm not the only one to think in a certain way, or in knowing that the information I have and pass on to my customers is also what other people have shared, and they view it to be very worthwhile and important. And so I have this newfound confidence that really I'm very happy and grateful for, and customers seem to really love it as well. So
that's great. Thank you, Laura. I love that it's translating to your customers and success within your business, feeling confident and having a community to support you in that. Amanda, did you have something?
Yeah. So I think I've been in the jewelry business for a long time, like, I don't know, probably like over 15 years. And I met Liz a long time ago, back in Todd Reed days. But I think that the community, I've always been an open book in the jewelry business. Like I've always shared my people, my suppliers, my everyone. And I know that that's not always the community, but I think that over the past couple of years, that's really helped grow my business, because then honing in with this community, because I just had my like local group of designers and some of them are in this group. Because I joined Stay Gold a little bit later in the pandemic, but I've always like followed Liz and all of that. But I just think that it's great to have more people that are so open about it, because I've always been sharing and so open to it. And I just think that when we like collaboration over competition is just the way to go. And we all grow together. And that's what I.
Yep. A rising tide lifts all boats, or all ships,
Yes.
whatever that saying is. Elise, did you have something?
Okay. Hi. Hi, I'm Elise. So community has definitely helped, and I have kind of two jewelry communities. I have the Space 85 community, and these are women that I've known for about 15 years, and where we've all studied in the same wax studio. So we've had that camaraderie of designing and making jewelry next to each other and having that kind of community. And then the Stay Gold community, I would not be able to do what I do without you and the Stay Gold community, with Space 85 and my own brand, Mejia. It's just having that support system like validates what you're doing. So it's really, there's no way that I would be able to have the confidence. That's really the right word. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I want to shout out, Elise also is someone who is pulling designers together in a big way with Space 85 and her, the studio she works with, if you want to kind of talk about that.
Sure. So Space 85, it's an online curated retail gallery, and it's the designers are women who I've known who are part of this wax studio, and we are all from New York, so we're supporting emerging New York designers, and a lot of them you wouldn't find anywhere else except on space85.com, and that's the URL, space85.com. And we have about 16 designers right now. Everything is handcrafted. We work mainly in wax, but some people use a combination of metal smithing and lost wax. And it's slow jewelry. You know, it's made with intention and a lot of love. So check it out. There's probably about 350 pieces on there.
I think I did the URL wrong. So if you want to check that, but
oh, let me see. I'm on my phone, so it's hard. No, that's right. It's space85.com.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cindy, did you have something to say?
Yeah, so I met you, Liz, about in 2019 at New York Jewelry Week.
On a panel.
Yeah, on a panel. And if it wasn't for my friend who invited me to be a part of that exhibition, I would have never made close connections with yourself and other jewelers that were part of that panel discussion. And after meeting you and talking to a lot of people there, when I came back home, I was like, you know what, I really, really enjoyed meeting other jewelers in the industry and hearing their stories. I also felt isolated for many years. I do live in somewhat of a big suburban area, but there's not a lot of jewelers and there's not a lot of Black jewelers. So there's the part of that isolation as well that I have felt since I've been making jewelry since 2008. So joining the Stay Gold Collective, I think right before or at the height of the pandemic, it just really helped, including this support system that I needed. I knew a lot of the things that I needed to do, but having someone like yourself and others to bounce back ideas, what is it that I can improve on? Or, you know, anything like that has just really made a big difference. So I'm really, really happy to be a part of the Stay Gold Collective.
And we love to have you. I think everybody loves Cindy. I think we can all agree on that. Well, we all love everybody, but Cindy is definitely one of our favorites. She's always doing everything so
Queen
well.
of systems, yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Aylee, you have your hand raised.
Yeah. I wanted to say something. Hold on, let me lower it. When we were talking about like clients and sharing, one of the things that I have really enjoyed is I've been able to share my client base with some of my really close jeweler friends. And I can't tell you how thrilling it is to, you know, be able to see my clients wearing my jewelry, with Cindy's jewelry, with Alisa's jewelry, with Creek's jewelry. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's really heartwarming. And I also have enjoyed purchasing jewelry from various, all of you. And I find that I wear it so often. And it's like wearing talismans from my favorite people, my favorite jewelers. And like right now I'm playing with a piece from Elise and a piece from Creek, you know, and I rub them and I touch them during different times of the day. And it's sometimes hard to put into words how kind of magical this whole collective has become, because as somewhat cheesy as that sounds, it truly has been a really magical experience. Little interactions throughout the day with many of you. It's priceless. So I just wanted to share that little aspect of client sharing and wearing each other's jewelry, because that's another facet of this loveliness.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the whole theme for New York City Jewelry Week this year is the power of jewelry. And it really is like, I mean, we wear these things close to our skin. So the fact that it was made by somebody you know and is in your community, and seeing your pieces together, that's such a special thing, right? Elise, you have your hand raised.
Yes. Ditto what Aylee said. I love wearing the pieces that I've gotten from some of the other Stay Gold collective designers, and I'm buying, like, I feel like I'm buying like a piece of them, you know, and I have them. I can't, you know, because we're so far away from each other, it's so nice to have that physical piece of them. So that's really special. And another thing I wanted to say was that you, Liz, were one of the first people that I brought the Space 85 idea to. And I was like, well, do you think this, you know, would work? And I think that because of your championing of it all, it's, you know, it is what it is also. So I just want to say that.
Yeah, I remember meeting you at the Javits Center.
Yeah. Yes, at the Javits Center.
Hayley, you have your hand raised?
Hi, yeah. First of all, hello, beautiful people. I'm so happy to see everybody here wearing jewelry and looking fabulous. So I am going to attempt to put words together when it's such a sentimental thing. Jewelry just brings people together, and community. It's just so nice to know that you're not alone. There are so many things that you don't expect and you don't know how to go about, or you need a problem solve, or I need help with this, or does anybody know? It's so soothing to know that you're not the only one. And, you know, I'm in New York, so it's really easy to feel small and also really connected at the same time to things. But I didn't start, and most of my jewelry career actually was across seas. So I'm from New York originally. I was across seas learning under a master metalsmith, came back to New York with this gut feeling. That's a little bit what I talk about when I wrote my blurb from the piece that I submitted. But so starting from scratch almost. And I just, you know, jewelry in and of itself, being a jeweler, it's very isolating. You know, it's very soothing sometimes, but it's also like, I crave connection, and I also do what I do because I want to help people feel connected, you know? And this group of wonderful people has been so priceless, especially during the you know what that we all went through last year. You know, it's like I actually was able, because of this group, was able to get everything together and launch my business, which was a dream of mine for the longest time. And I was being really precious about it, holding it back, like, oh, it's not ready. And you know, I think it's safe to say that a lot of us go through this, but imposter syndrome, that is no, I speak to so many people in almost every craft and different kinds of industries. No matter what, you're gonna feel it, but it creeps up on you sometimes. But it's really it's just really special to have a group of people that just hear you, feel you, and connect with you. And this community has helped me like just start from scratch essentially, and it's been such a ride. Like, I appreciate you guys so much.
I love how I met Hayley, because she saw my dear friend Morgan Miller on the train, and she like you're like,
I was on my way going to school. I was going to Pratt, and then I was on the G train. I saw this woman walk in, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's wearing amazing jewelry. I recognize a lot of those people. I have to talk. I was like, I see you. I need to sit next to you. Totally not being a creep, but we just started chatting, and then all of a sudden she was like, oh, you should talk to Liz. And I was like, Liz. I was like, wait a second. I've been following Liz for years on Instagram. You've got to be kidding me. Pure kismet, you know?
That was amazing. I think about the story a lot because I just love it.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, so we're gonna Creek. We'll hear from Creek, and then I want to hear about some of the pieces that you submitted a little bit more. So
I'm just thinking, do you guys remember that meme at the beginning of the pandemic that was like, you know, the flaming sky, and someone holding a little piece, like, does anyone want to buy a painting? Yeah. And the messages that we were getting from Liz and other trusted, you know, mentor, consultant thinkers who are like, what you're doing is important. But it didn't feel that way, honestly. Like, I had a really hard time wrapping my brain about it. And it was so powerful to go through this process. Like, Hayley, you just said, you know, you recognize Morgan and all the people she was wearing, right? It's like, we are all interesting people. We are all artists with a flavor of, you know, calling out and pulling from the ether into material, powerful things in all of our own flavors. And it was so powerful to go through that process of believing that and doing that myself. I also am wearing you all and other people who I love, and that we are, yes, you know, that we're people behind this, and we are a community making things. And I just, it's so powerful to have gone through that process and believe that, and that it is because we are interesting, small batch people who can't really work for other people. We're interested, you know, that's part of the magic that we bring. And I just think that's beautiful. And it's an honor to participate in that as a jeweler, but also as a customer.
Yeah, I love that. So everyone here submitted pieces for this exhibition, and the idea was that you would submit a piece of jewelry and share the inspiration behind it and how it related to community and connection. Does anybody want to tell the story of their piece? Anyone here? Amy? Yeah. Oh, let me unmute you, Amy.
Hi. I've been listening and taking everything in and kind of silently agreeing with everybody, and being a little bit shy in terms of sharing, because I'm kind of a newer person to the collective, and I've been sort of listening to some of your webinar sales and things in the background, but haven't gotten to know a lot of the members yet, other than Liz and also Laura. And I would like to get to know Hayley and, you know, everybody who's in New York City. I'm in New York City, and I agree with that. I think that the concept of Space 85 is something that I definitely want to find out more from Elise about. So anyway, I'm backtracking because I'm trying to answer the question that I didn't answer before. But I was excited to participate in this sale because, you know, I saw that it was a benefit sale for Nolo Studios, which is supporting you know, people from all different backgrounds coming in and being able to make jewelry. And the piece that I submitted is, I was originally inspired by surrealism, and I wanted to achieve with metal the texture and the fluidity of like a fabric. Like I've always loved the Elsa Peretti bone cuff and how that was so seamlessly skimming over the body. And this is actually the original. So I fold formed a piece of silver. I like to work with materials that I already have, and that usually informs my creative process. So sometimes I'll take a scrap and it'll inform a shape. And so I had been doing these other cuffs, and I was doing a fold forming experiment, and just took a piece of silver, which people don't usually fold form with because it's a lot harder to work with than copper or brass. And I ultimately was making this as a one-of-a-kind experiment. But having worn it and having generated interest in it, I wanted to be able to replicate it. So what I did over this past year was I found out about making a mold of it and then making a casting. And so and then I was able to use 18 karat gold plate, which I wanted to do because if you look at my piece on the, you know, on our page, I think it really dances in gold. And so as far as Frida Kahlo, there were some, I wanted to share my screen, but I forgot to ask how to do that. I don't know. Oh, maybe I can do it like this. If I'm sharing host disabled, oh, sorry. All right, I won't do that. Anyway, I had a few references of pictures from Frida Kahlo that had ribbons encircling herself and her monkey and cultural references. And she brings like this sort of surrealist, you know, beautiful like path through the chaos. And I felt like with COVID and, you know, being a fellow artist and feeling like things were kind of surreal, and, you know, being able to achieve this fold formed object that was like hard but looked fluid. I don't know, it just all seemed to come together. And then I was thinking, you know, really Frida Kahlo being, you know, was a Mexican painter. You know, I'm sure a lot of you know who she is, but she became a representative of feminism and, you know, multiculturalism and, you know, questioning people's roles in leadership and in times of unrest. And I just found that to be really inspiring and a way to sort of bridge. I love historical, you know, studies of periods and how that generates art out of it. And that's a good silver lining of COVID, is that I think a lot of creative types were inspired to, you know, connect with other people. And it gave me the push to get more life out of a piece that I made so that I can make it and achieve it in gold, you know, with the look of gold. It was too big to do it solid gold, but and that kind of and then being able to offer it in terms of helping possibly somebody, if it sells, helping you know, generate money to support another artist. I just thought the whole idea was coming full circle, and had to jump in, even though I'm not as you know, I haven't been in this collective as long, but I really do want to own you all and connect and improve what I'm offering and all of that. So thank you, Liz, for the opportunity.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, and we love to welcome you in. We love welcoming new people in because we tend to like everybody. But I love this. Amanda commented, a beautiful path through the chaos. I love that. I love that too. And I just shared a link to your bracelet in the chat if anybody's not sure what we're talking about. But putting that bracelet on, I was very excited for you to send it to me, because putting that bracelet on is an adventure. And it's also, once it's on, it feels so good. It feels very empowering.
I want to take it off. I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, you have to kind of manipulate it to get it on. You sort of wind your arm in it, but then you can sort of customize it and squeeze it to fit better. I mean, whoever winds up with it is going to make it their own. And, you know, you could wear it looser, or I don't know. I just think I like the free formness, that it's kind of like, how did that happen? It's metal, but I mean, to me, I don't know. I'm still working on this concept, because now that I'm casting cuffs, I might try to do something more curvaceous in copper, or, you know, a material that's easier to, you know, constantly anneal and hammer in versus silver. Because working in silver, I just thought this was a good material for the one of a kind, but then being able to replicate it, and that's something that I actually want to plug in with this group about, in terms of scaling the business and being able to make castings of these original pieces that took hours to make, you know, that you can then, you know, have more people enjoy it rather than it being a one of a kind. There's definitely a place and a time for one of a kind as well. But anyway, I feel like I'm rambling. Thank you.
Me. Love it. Amanda, you have your hand raised. Oh, let me unmute you.
That was me. Sorry. I lowered the hand and didn't unmute. But my piece, I kind of took the bonded part, and so it's it has rutilated quartz with the hematite and the golden rudel within the quartz. And a lot of times, you know, people would think, oh, the inclusions like ruin the stone, or they do that. But I love inclusions, and I work with all of the different inclusions in quartz. And so I took that, but then the community part was through this community, through Alisa, the ethical, like those ethical gem suppliers. And I had heard of them, and I had talked to some of the vendors, but I had never had the time to like go deeper into that. And during COVID, I was able to attend the shows and meet a bunch of the suppliers and source the stones. And so then you get to really connect with the stones from the beginning to the end. And so not just using like recycled gold, but also, you know, knowing how the stones were sourced and cut and just the stories behind it. So then you have the meaning, because I'm always into the meaning of the stones, but you also have how it came to be. And that whole community, I think that's so important. And as a person who's always been conscious of our footprint on the planet, getting into that and understanding, because of supply chain issues and all the stuff that came up during COVID, it just really made it feel more important, and making those decisions. And you can create a beautiful piece of jewelry and know where it all came from and who's all involved. And so the community becomes even past, you know, this group and into other parts, and choosing pieces and creating work. And also just having it, you know, feel like a part of you, like the way it's designed to like curve on your finger and, you know, like sit really comfortably, so that it just kind of like, you know, it just feels really nice. And there's, I use Reiki and stuff in my jewelry, so it's also got a lot of like energy within the stone. So there's just a lot of really fun things within that.
I'm wearing this ring right now, and it feels very nice. You can feel the like good energy with it, and yeah, it curves to your hand. It's a really nice ring. I really like this one.
Thanks, Liz.
Jen, you had your hand raised.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So like Amy, I'm relatively new to the Stego Collective, and I've been popping in and out, and just really appreciate the supportive community that you've created, Liz. And, you know, I met you last year at American Handcrafted before the shutdown. And the shutdown happened, and living through the pandemic, my piece is part of my collection from last year, which is called the Radiance Collection, inspired by the sun and all things positive and hopeful. And I think we needed a lot of that, and we still need that now. And so what I did with my pendant necklace was I created 3 of the starburst radiances stacked on top of each other, one smaller at the top, and then there's a medium, and then a larger piece. And that was really kind of to symbolize like all the levels of community and connection. So, you know, I feel like it's really important that we stay connected like with ourselves and being true to ourselves, especially during challenging times. And then also we have our immediate community, probably our friends and family, which is represented by the medium sun, and then the larger sun being just kind of larger community at large, whether that's you know, your neighborhood, or like with me being a jeweler, for me, it's you guys. I have a couple other communities, like one that Robin Kramer, because I worked with Robin in, gosh, 2018 or 2019. I can't remember. It's been a long couple years, but it's just to show all those different levels of connection and community and how they're just all intertwined. And yeah, I mean, kind of mentioning or answering what you said before about community and growing your career. I was a personal fitness trainer before I became a jeweler. So for me, I started out like I knew nothing. I didn't go to school or I didn't go to college for metalsmithing. I learned at a local school and really have been able to build my business. And now I own a jewelry school. And so I'm creating another community through my jewelry school with other hobbyists and maybe aspiring designers. So it's just, yeah, community is everything. And with that pendant piece that I have available that's featured, it's really just to show all those different levels and kind of like an evolution of connection.
I love that piece. I shared a link to it in the chat for anybody who's interested in taking a look. Thank you for sharing. Lauren?
Hi, so I operate under the name Palm Sunday for jewelry, and it's a collection of mostly rings. And the number one request that I got during 2020 was jewelry that could connect people to other people that they were not close to. So whether they lost somebody or because of isolation, they weren't allowed to be near somebody that they loved. So I wanted to create something that symbolized that was easily replicable. And I made a ring that was a play on the Moai Toi ring. So it translates to me and you. And it's a ring that wraps around the finger and it hugs your finger. And there's a space for either engraving somebody's initials along with yours, or it could be 2 other people's initials, or it could be a place for a stone to be set to represent somebody else and yourself, or 2 other people who you want to keep close. And it was just a way to bring somebody who is far away from you or somebody that you lost to keep hugging your finger. And it's adjustable, so you can kind of really make it squeeze your finger if you want to.
Yeah, I'm wearing that ring also next to Amanda's, actually. It's very nice. It does feel like it's hugging my finger. And I shared a link to that in the chat. Who else has their hand raised? Creek?
Just quickly, I'm Creek. I go by Compass Rose Design for my jewelry. The piece that I submitted is a sterling silver crescent moon with 3 little diamonds in it. Some of my very first stone setting foray. I really believe in sterling as an heirloom quality piece. I look forward to someday some metal detectoring some of our work, right? We're making forever pieces. This piece is an invitation to realize connection both to ourselves in time. I work with shoe buckles and Victorian buttons and sort of the trappings of patriarchy translated into objects of feminist empowerment, quite frankly. And I love realizing our connection and sort of calling back to the women of the past and living in empowered ways that maybe they couldn't. The 3 diamonds in it for me really also symbolize the mother, maiden, crone sort of life cycle. And I think this era of COVID really, you know, we live very much in American culture, certainly without a great sense of ritual and meaning. You know, some of us bring that from other cultures and family traditions, but I think that this experience for many of us and experiencing loss and not being able to be near people and still having the joy of birth and the profound experience of grief and all of it was such a poignant moment. And while we were slowed to experience that. And I think that there's great power in occupying our space in the life cycle and finding ways to create our own rituals. So over and out.
Beautifully said. I'm wearing your necklace right now.
I also believe in wearing your jewelry in the ocean. I know that that is a controversial topic, but I'm a 24/7. And so far it's, you know, there's a lot of ways to be, but I think that
depends on the piece. Be careful.
It does. Solid sterling and bronze work it. But I'm taking my golden diamonds in the ocean. It's all right. I made them. It's fine.
Yeah, totally. Alison, thank you for being here so late. We appreciate you. Okay.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. I'm going to have to go, but just so lovely as always.
Yes, thank you.
Tell us about your piece really quickly.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Really quickly. My piece is from my happenstance collection, which is like an extension of my Cat King collection, and I've always been really considered about the stones that I use, and like had a really kind of pared back color palette. But then with this collection, I started noticing when I got stones for commissions, I'd always end up getting more and want to keep things. And so I've collected all these things. I bet everybody else has as well, does the same sort of thing. You just can't help it. And these all started to kind of come together on my bench, and they'd all come to me for different reasons and for different purposes at different times from different countries. And so then they all kind of started to come together in this collection, and it's for me, it is actually quite pared back color wise, but for me it was quite a color clash going on, and it's even got even more color clashy as the collection's gone on. But it felt like it really related to this subject matter because of the gathering and the coming together, so it felt really appropriate.
Yeah, I love that piece. I love how you've put the stones together. It's so balanced yet unexpected. And I've shared a link if anybody wants to take a look. But thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. Bye. Bye, guys.
Beth?
Hi. I don't think I did, well, okay. I don't know if I did the assignment so well with, I did not submit something that I had made like during the pandemic or during this time of being in the Stay Gold Collective. But the piece, it's these fishbone earrings that I do casting, so I had a mold of it so I can reproduce it. And the reason why it was on my mind when Liz was talking about putting this show together is that I do have some news that I can't really say, but I'm going to say it to y'all because y'all can, whatever. They're going to be in a movie, and like it's a big movie with Ray Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy, and it's coming out. I don't know when, but they were bought off of the website of Worthwhile that carries my work, and then they contacted me. They were filming in Savannah, and it's a movie called The Menu, and it's like it's kind of a dark comedy. It's about this chef that this couple goes to the restaurant to have a meal, and then it changed, like things aren't what they thought they were going to be. I don't know what happens. I don't know if there's cannibalism. I don't know what's going to happen. But one of the main characters, she wears my earrings, and it's one of the few things that I make that's actually big enough that you could see them on the screen. So anyway, she's in it, and there's no costume changes because it just takes place in one night. So anyway, I was really excited about that. I just found out that news, and then this, this exhibit was coming up, and I thought, well, why don't I just, they were on my mind. But also those fish bones do represent community to me because they were given, the original bone was found by a friend of mine that lives here. She found them on a beach somewhere. She found two matching like bones, they were opposite. And she's had them for a long time, and she found out that I made jewelry and that I do a lot of things where I make molds from actual, bones or whatever, shells. And so she gave them to me, and I made a mold of them, and they make beautiful earrings. So that was kind of like my idea of community. But anyway, I just wanted to explain that because they aren't something that I made. I've made a lot of work during the pandemic, but I didn't make work specific for this exhibit.
That's okay. That's okay. I was open to whatever anybody wanted to submit, what they were compelled to submit. I don't know. I love that story, just like you were excited about them at that time, and maybe there's a reason that they're a part of this. I like those earrings quite a bit. They're very cool. I shared the link in the chat if anybody wants to take a look. I'd love them in solid gold. I think that would be great.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I have them priced out in solid gold. I've never made them in solid gold. But if somebody wants to buy them, please.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to, I want Laura, I think you had your hand raised, but I want you to tell your story because I think it's really interesting about how, well, you'll tell the story, but.
Okay. Well, during the pandemic, you know, I was putting my work out there mostly virtually, and I started to get some requests for protective stones. And it's not something that I'm aware of. I'm not an expert in the subject, so I did some research, and I came up with a number of stones that I thought were the most protective. You all will probably know many of them, know that they have these qualities, just clear quartz crystal and citrine and labradorite and moonstones. And I just started including them in the fibers that I use. I source unusual and some precious fibers from all over the world. A lot of silk, cashmere, 14 karat gold thread, and sterling silver thread. But I start people would like the style, and they would just say to me, "Oh, you know, could you please add these stone anything protective to it?" So it started, and it was a little bit of a snowball type thing, where when other women found out that other women had these protective stones, they immediately, even if they were hesitating to purchase the piece, they would immediately jump upon it. Maybe it's because New York City was at the beginning, like kind of like the center of the pandemic during a certain time period. But people really felt a certain power, and I think they were connected to one another through these protective stones, because as soon as they found out that so-and-so had it, they wanted them as well. And so now I include these stones, whenever I can, as often as I can. And, I think it adds to the piece. And the other thing is that the center stone, which is a sapphire, was also I sourced it from a woman gem dealer originally from India. And it's very rare in my experience to have these women gem dealers, and I love working with her. She seems to be more in touch with a sense of community in general, and so that's why I choose that piece.
I love that. I think that the past couple of years have really proven how grounding and important jewelry is in a lot of ways, because everybody's seeking this like talisman to wear close to them and to feel protected. So I loved Laura's story. Okay, let's keep going. It's 5 o'clock. If anybody needs to leave, I fully understand and am not offended. Feel free. But let's hear some more stories if people want to share. Aylee?
Okay, let me lower my hand. I wanted to talk about my piece. I wish I had one of them here, but I've only made one. It's a sugared chevron, it's actually pretty small and petite, necklace with 3 diamonds, silver and 18 karat gold. And I started the piece in early 2020, just playing around with the chevron shape, because I do a chevron ring that's kind of popular. So I thought maybe I'll do a chevron necklace. And I thought I was going to make it for Valentine's Day of either 2020 or 2021. Because originally I saw this kind of like V in it, and I thought, well, maybe it could be for that, but not be like literally for Valentine's Day. But it didn't feel quite right. So I don't know. I'm sure some of you have had a design where you think you're working on it, you're thinking about it, it's not quite right, and you just tuck it away. You just put it in a drawer and you don't even look at it for months and months. So when Liz started talking about this bonded exhibition, I was looking through pieces that I'd started and put away, and that was one of the pieces. And I saw this chevron shape in a completely different way. To me, it looked like open arms in a way because of the V. And so my brain immediately thought of myself as the open arms, because a lot of changes happened in my business and in my life because of COVID. And I kind of had to change everything in the way that I sell jewelry. And there was a part of me that wanted to just hunker down and hide. And instead I joined the Stay Gold Collective and did lots of consulting calls with Liz and really reorganized and our famous word, pivoted my business in a completely different direction. And so all of a sudden this chevron to me symbolized my idea of keeping my arms open and what can happen when you change your mindset. And rather than shutting down, you open up, open arms, open mind. And the diamonds on the chevron represent 3 very, very, very special treasures. You know who you are, that will be with me forever. So that you can read about my story, of course, but I wanted to share with the group a little more about the meaning and the background of it. So hopefully that resonates with some of you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Creek has to leave, which is okay. She's going snorkeling, which is great. Okay, a couple more stories to share, and then a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap this up. Alisa?
Hi. So I wrote a lot about the piece, and I actually probably cut out 2,000 words before I sent it to you. But one thing I didn't really think about until we're in this session is that this whole line, this whole collection is actually something that we had been conceptualizing. Oh, my name is Alisa, and I'm Mercurius Jewelry with my husband, Dave. And we've been floating around the concept of this line called the Cauldron, our Cauldron collection. But it didn't really take form or come into being until the time after I joined the Stay Gold Collective. And I feel like all the work that I did with the group and just everything I learned helped bring that into being and made it go from conceptual to reality. So it is also another level of how this particular piece in this collection was influenced by this group, because I don't think we would have gotten there without me being a part of this collective and all of your support. But a couple of other things mentioned about the design. I selected this particular cauldron because the materials are also especially have a community meaning to me. So this piece is made of Kambaba jasper, which is fossilized colonies of blue-green algae. So the material itself is actually a community of algae, of little creatures that have formed this stone, which is very cool. And then the Montana sapphire that is set in the cauldron comes from a woman whose father was the miner. Either he or her brother cut the stone. And so it's very through a connection, a personal connection, that I have the stone, and knowing exactly who mined it and who cut it is one of my favorite things about the piece. So that is all. It's both the materials and that it all came into being through this group. And then finally, it's a piece that has this aspect of like the wearer empowers it with their intention. It's the idea there's an open space in it. And the idea is you set your intention to create a talisman for yourself that's going to help bring about whatever it is that you're looking for. And so that's the final piece between, from the source to the maker to the wearer. Everybody plays a part in bringing the piece into its full being.
I love that. I put it on one of the pieces is antique. Elena Herrera submitted, and it has this like jump ring, and I put it on with this like antique fob, and I love how modern yours is and how well it works with the antique fob.
Oh yeah, I love that also. I loved how that looked.
Yeah, that's such a great piece. Thanks for sharing the details behind the stone. So Elise has her hand raised, and Cindy had her hand raised, but she had to looks like pop off for a minute. But I wanted to mention this group. Creek had to leave, but the Goldie Girls, which is a group inside the group that organically formed, and it's like this group of, I didn't know about it until I was chatting with Aylee, and she was like, oh yeah, so me and the Goldie Girls got together and talked about our pricing. And I was like, what? Who are these people and what are you doing? But they got together and they started like really supporting each other in a big way. So Elise and then Cindy, if when you talk about your piece, if you want to talk about this, and then we'll circle back to Aylee, that would be great.
Okay, you want me to go now?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the piece I submitted, the idea, it's an earring and it has 3 parts to it. The idea behind it is that we're stronger together than on our own. So the first part to the earring is a hoop, and it kind of twists behind the ear, and there's a stone set, so it kind of lingers right below your earlobe. And that represents the individual, colorful and slightly ajar, singular. And then that hoop can hold charms. So there are 2 charms. There's a cascade of pearls and there's a snake charm. And snakes represent rebirth, protection, and strength. So the snake is an amulet or a talisman that represents the people in my community who have given me strength. And the pearls, they're hand strung with silk. There's a turquoise silk holding them all together. And each knot represents a connection between individuals who have a common goal. And so you can wear the earring separately. You can just wear the hoop. You can wear the hoop with the snake, or you could wear the hoop with the long earring cascade, or you can wear them all together. It's very energetic and playful, and it moves around. So that's the idea, is that when we come together, we are stronger. So that's the idea behind the earring, and it's inspired very much by community, and especially my Goldie Girls. So I think one of the questions you wanted to know is how we started.
Yeah.
So I think
also Beth says, I want to be a Goldie Girl. I also want to be a Goldie Girl. So.
Yes. Yes, we're going to have to add to our Goldie Girl community. Yeah. So I think, Aylee, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we started it after the first happy hour Zoom. I think we only had one. And then we were like, well, let's keep going. And when it was done.
I think it was our New Year's one. Was it our New Year's one?
Yeah, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we were texting, and once the call was like coming to an end, the 4 of us, Creek is snorkeling now, but the 4 of us were texting, and we were saying, we don't want it to end. We want more. So
Yeah.
then the four of us connected, and we've been doing this ever since. And it's a lot. If you want to be a Goldie girl, it's a lot of time. I'm just saying. We do a lot. We do long power Zooms.
Yeah,
Wow.
right. But they're so productive and inspiring. And like, we have personal, power Zooms, or we'll just, be very laser focused on jewelry, and we'll just talk about what's going on in our world and our ideas, and bounce ideas off each other. And what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? And it's just so wonderful to have them. And they're such a pillar of strength. And even during the day, we'll send, texts to each other, quick texts like, oh, guys, I need help with this. What do you do? And it's just that support system that is imperative for, I think, all of us to have.
I think one thing that I just have to share that's like really unique with us is this rapport that we have, like this connection, even though we all have not been in person together. Elise and Cindy were lucky enough to get to meet each other in person in New York recently. And Creek and I were having like a crazy case of FOMO here hanging out. Creek and I are just like, we're all going to get together. But something simple but powerful happened. It was an afternoon. It was either a Thursday or Friday afternoon. And, two of us are on the East Coast, two of us are on the West Coast. I was having just a tough day, creatively, financially, like all the things. And I had texted the girls and said that, and all of a sudden they all just like dropped everything and created this Zoom. And we didn't do a long Zoom that day, but we did like a 30-minute or so Zoom just randomly. And by the time we hung up, I had wiped my tears away. I had an authentic smile on my face, and I was, ready to start with a new mindset. And there is like something really, 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 really special about that.
That's the power of community. I think we've answered the question.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cindy, do you want to chime in and tell us about your piece?
Yeah. So my piece was designed based off 2021 is probably the year I felt more off kilter than I did in 2020. Because the whole thing of, I have to pivot, I need to shift, I need to do this. So my brain was focused on so many other things. And there were times where I would wake up every morning crying because of the chaos of our world was just so hateful. But I would get up and like, I've got to get this done. So when 2021 came around, I didn't know where to start. I didn't know if I needed, where to begin, what kind of goals am I going to set this year? I did so much last year that I think I basically felt so drained, and I just didn't feel like I really wanted to keep creating at some point. And that only lasted for a couple of weeks. I, had to get myself back to going. So I just kind of experimented and wanted to create a collection that represented how the moon with the Allah necklace, for instance, is the one that I submitted. It's a very simple design. I use like a square wire with the bevel side pointing up to kind of really give dimension to the shape. And then there's that thin bar anchored across that it's accented with a London blue topaz. Now the collection features a variety of rainbow of gemstones to represent our world itself. And with the half moon shape, it represents intuition, psyche, empowerment, and friendship. And Aylee was mentioning the arms. Well, the U shape is how I feel with me as this bar, this gemstone anchored, that's off-centered, very abstract, and just trying to find balance. And then I have this small community of friends that are holding me up. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. So anyway, that's what the necklace represents in community and friendship for me. So sorry.
Oh my God. Oh, I love that. It's been a hard couple of years, and I'm so glad we were able to be here for each other. I think that I want to wrap this up with a question to everyone, if anybody wants to share, but how can we continue to grow and support each other as a community? And I'm getting emotional asking that question, because it's like, okay, well, we have this thing. How do we keep growing? How do we keep supporting each other? If anybody has any thoughts they'd like to share there, I'd love to hear. Lauren?
We can all meet in person one day.
Definitely.
I feel like this whole time we've all been isolated, and it's been mostly during the pandemic. I know I joined during the pandemic, and a lot of people did. And it would just be so cool to finally be able to have some sort of meetup where we can actually say hi to each other and even give each other a hug. So that's my suggestion.
That's a really good one. We'll talk more about that. There's thoughts in the works. Beth?
Well, I just, going along with that, the meeting up, I hope that someday, instead of having a virtual event, that we can have a live event with all of us, that you could organize, Liz. I mean, I don't know where we have it, but I think that would be just so awesome to have, you know, a group show. And I want to say one little thing, and then I'll be quiet. But one of the reasons that I was connected to Liz is through your earrings, your friend Alice.
One of my best friends.
I met Alice at Penland. We took a stone setting class together, and that's how I made the connection to you. So, and I mean, if you want to talk about community, Penland is an amazing place for community if you've never been there before. And also that's when we did our show last year, it benefited a scholarship. Right?
Yep, crafting the future.
So I meant to say that earlier, but I just think that's another cool connection. And I saw you wearing the earrings, and I was like, oh. So.
Yeah, that's so cool. I wore these actually because Alice is part of my local Asheville community. She and I met at American Handcrafted, which is where I met actually a couple of designers in this group years ago. And I was like, I just moved to Asheville. And she's like, oh, I live in Asheville. And we've been friends ever since. So anyway, I wore
well,
these
and you and I have to get together at some point, because we are like
right
an hour away from each other.
Yeah, definitely. But I love that. Meeting in person will happen one day. Maybe it's next year at New York City Jewelry Week 2022. Maybe it's in New York. Maybe it's in Tucson. Maybe it's in Asheville. I don't know. We'll plan something. But
I have a little idea. It's just super little. But if anyone ever wants to have like a more socially oriented Zoom that usually has a lot of jewelry conversation going on, Liz, if you wanted to host it on your account, or you wanted somebody else to host it, because I know you have a lot going on with your baby and your world outside of the Stay Gold Collective too, but that's definitely a way to create even more community and have time to just be casual together.
Amazing. We'll definitely do another New Year's Zoom for sure, happy hour kind of Zoom thing, and maybe we'll do them more frequently, but that's a great suggestion. Any other thoughts anybody wants to share before we wrap this up? Oh, no, Beth, you already talked. Anybody else have anything they want to say? Final thoughts? I think that everybody still watching is in the collective, or is my parents or my aunt. So we appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here so much. And And thanks for talking about community. And I'd love to continue this conversation with everyone. If you were watching and you didn't share, or you were on the panel and you didn't share, I'd love to know what community means to you. So feel free to message me on any of the platforms. And check out the exhibition and maybe buy a piece of jewelry for yourself or somebody you love. That would be a really great gift, and we'll donate 20% to NOLO and their residency program. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Liz.
I'll see you all on Thursday.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.